Welcome to Dude Rakes. Each week, we'll do a deep dive into Clemson baseball with special guests knowledgeable about Clemson and/or college baseball. It's a casual, laid-back, but fast-paced 15 to 20-minute show. With that, let's get started.
All right, talking about casual and laid back, we show up, I think it was 10 seconds before we went live. Perfect timing.
Oops.
Perfect time by Jason Priester of the Clemson Insider.com. Hey, JP, I was thinking during the week, I saw your daughter sing that national anthem the other day. Great job, by the way. And I thought to myself, we know him, we love him as JP, but soon he could just be known as Maddie's father, right?
She kind of killed it, didn't she?
She's taken over the national anthem. That's at least twice she sung, right?
Third time, but this one was a little different, I thought.
Very good. It was very good. As somebody who can't sing whatsoever, I really, really admire people who can.
We got no idea where she got it.
I love it. I love it. Kevron checks in. How you doing, Kevron? Good to see. Good to see you. Well, let's start off and talk about the two midweek games. We'll just kind of glance over Georgia Tech, but talk about those two midweek games. The Tigers got 2 wins, College Charleston and Citadel. I think here's where I'm at. I feel like the College Charleston game left a little bit to be desired. I think they hit the ball hard last night, and there were some catches. But that College Charleston game, they didn't do much of anything at the plate.
I think the box score is a little deceiving. I thought they hit the ball, or I thought they had some hard hit balls in that game that were right at people, like 8 or 9 that were hit like, as the beef would say, on the screws. They just ended up being right at guys. I know they only had 6 hits, and Savoy was responsible for all 3 runs, but I think sometimes that's just baseball. You hit it right at guys, and I thought there was a little bit of that Tuesday. And then last night, some of those balls that were being hit right at people a day before, they were finding holes and leading to more production. Talking to Bakich after the game Tuesday night, he seemed thoroughly pleased with the approach. He thought they had a lot more quality of bats than what the box score showed. I thought Gerald just missed a couple, got up under a couple. He finally got a hold of one yesterday, but I thought they probably hit the ball a little bit better than maybe, some would think, just looking at the numbers and saying, oh, they only had 6 hits, only scored 3 runs. They did have a couple of opportunities with some guys on base where they probably, could have manufactured another run or 2 with a timely hit. But, in general, I thought they hit the ball better than what the box score showed.
Well, Ty Dowley certainly had a couple last night that he smashed, and I think it would have been, 30 feet over the fence at Clemson, but unfortunately ended up with 2 outs out of the 2 I saw that went close to the wall at Riley Park.
If I'm remembering correctly, one of those was 107 off the bat.
I think so.
That's out the park at Clemson 99.9% of the time. Right there at Riley Park, it's right there on the Ashley River, so you kind of got the ocean breeze somewhat. And it wasn't as cold as Tuesday night, but it was still cold, not really conducive to hitting, if you will. But he seems like he's starting to come around. I thought over the first few weeks when he was really struggling, he was kind of trying to yank everything, maybe wanting to get that first homer under his belt. But it seems like the last couple of weeks he started to use the entire field more. You see him trying to go the other way some. And he's an example of one of those guys that hit some hard Tuesday, maybe it wasn't Tuesday, but over the past, a couple of weeks, he's been hitting some balls hard that maybe necessarily didn't find a spot. He seems like he's finally starting to kind of come out of it a little bit.
I had him on the list to talk about down the road, but we can touch on that now. He's got 2 extra base hits, JP. Certainly should have more than that, as you just said. He's hitting the ball hard recently. but he's got a double and a home run against South Carolina. I don't know. I can't remember where the double came in, but 2 extra base hits and 84 plate appearances.
Yeah. Hey, make no mistake, man. He is not, the middle of the lineup producer that I think everyone envisioned he would be, coming in as a guy that's hit 61 homers and just, mashed at Mercer the past 3 years. It's been a bunch of singles, 1 home run, 1 double, as you just said.
Yeah.
He's only got, 15 RBIs. I think we all thought that number would be much higher. It's the next couple of weeks are going to be pivotal for him. Bakich admitted the other day, I asked him about Todd Dowley after maybe that last Georgia Tech game where he had a multi-hit game, if I'm remembering right. And he said they've kind of given him a long leash despite not being in the program because, they've seen what he can do. They saw it in the fall. They saw it in the preseason. And for whatever reason, it's just not translated so far to the field once the lights are on.
Well, and I think the other thing, this is what I want to talk about. I think the other thing is we talked about preseason trying to find 12 bats. So, we came up, or you let me know who that 12th one was. And when you got 9 on the field, there's not much left, right? There's not who if you replace him with someone, you may get a few more singles, but really that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for some power.
And if we're counting Colin Priest as one of those 12, he's not even available anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know. Really, the only other thing you could do maybe is replace him with Clavon, who's kind of maybe not in right field, but in the lineup, and he's struggling even worse than Dowley has. He had a couple hits and a walk last night. Good for him. He kind of needed that night, but I don't know that there are a ton of options there. You kind of got to let him try and hit his way out of it.
All right. Well, let's talk about something fun right now. Let's talk about that pitching staff. In preseason, you and I were. Let me speak for myself. I won't speak for you. I was doubting that they had 18 arms that could contribute, and so far, Eric Bakich and those 18 young men have shoved it to me and said, yes, we can contribute. And, there's bumps in the road here and there, but they have looked fantastic, throwing strikes, the making pitches. Georgia Tech was an exception, but I think a lot of people are going to struggle against Georgia Tech this year. My untrained eye says, that's a really good hitting team, probably one of the top 5 in the country. And Saturday in the 3rd game, the Clemson pitching staff walked 0 of those Georgia Tech batters. Now, Georgia Tech scored 7 runs, but I dare say that's not a terrible day on the mound. But they do look deep. Now, it's early in the ACC season. We still got 27 ACC games to go of varying quality. But they look deep and really good. But I'm going to go back to this, and you can tell me to stop bringing it up if you want to. But to my untrained eye, Canuck just doesn't look the same. And someone suggested that we have unreasonable expectations for him, and that's probably partly true. But he's also got a 5.29 ERA. The whip is a little bit better. The FIP is a little bit better at 4, suggesting there's been some bad luck. But Tech rocketed some balls out of there. I think he gave up 3 home runs and 3 doubles in that game. Again, it's Georgia Tech, one of the best teams in the nation. Is there any reason to be concerned about Canuck? He's had 4 starts, no wins. He should have had one against Bryant, but the bullpen gave it up, or at least let it get tied. But he hasn't lasted very long in many of the games. He hasn't been efficient. I've heard you talk about that on your show. He's in the bottom half of the team in strikes throwing. I don't know. I don't know what to think. I hear Bakich say nothing's wrong with him. Then I see him pitch 3 innings. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the big question right now, right? To be fair, his ERA, I think, was 2.77 going into Georgia Tech. And he did have some bad luck in that South Carolina game, but he still didn't look like a typical what we expect of Aiden Canuck. He had the rough luck 3rd inning, and then after that, he set everybody else down. after that, in Bakic's post game Thursday after Georgia Tech, he used the word nibble, and that's a word that a buddy of mine uses when he's talking about Canuck a lot is nibble. I don't know how much nibble. I didn't get to watch that game because I was in Charlotte. I tried to watch at it a little bit, and I saw one of the home runs that got hit on a pitch that was way up and in. And I still have no idea how that guy got around on that ball. And he didn't just hit it out over the fence. He hit it out the dang park. But just a little bit I watched. He didn't walk any guys, which is a little unusual for him because usually he's walking,
right.
2, 3, 4 guys every start.
And he struck out 8.
Yeah, and he struck out 8, and he's never been the most efficient pitcher. Even if you go back to his freshman year, because I think there's been a little bit of revisionist history here. He had some walks then too. I thought he was a little bit more efficient overall as a freshman than he was last year and so far this year, but maybe not quite as efficient as some remember. Without having seen a lot of that game Thursday and just seeing bits and pieces, I thought maybe he was getting a little bit too much of the plate with some of those balls. Whereas in previous starts, maybe he was nibbling a little bit and just not quite as in command as we expect him to be. And that's kind of changed since he added another fastball and that cutter. I don't think he has command of those pitches the way he has that other fastball. I can't remember if the 4-seamer or 2-seamer was first, but whichever one he was throwing originally. And that change up in that breaking ball he throws, slider or whatever it is, maybe adding to his repertoire has maybe hurt his command a little bit.
Yeah.
I do think this is, this is a big start for him Friday. He needs a bounce back effort because, Sharman's been outstanding. Titsworth's been outstanding in a smaller sample size. They moved Titsworth into the Sunday starting spot last weekend. I would imagine he'll stay there. You need your Friday night guy to deliver like an ace. You don't want to go into every Saturday down 0-1. It puts that much more pressure on your Saturday guy and the rest of the team. They definitely need Aiden to have a bounce back day Friday, and as whether something's wrong with him, they swear nothing is. I have a hard time believing they'd be, pitching him if there was something major wrong with him. Maybe there's something minor he's trying to battle through. I haven't heard that there was, so I mean, don't misunderstand. But he's definitely not looked like ace.
Well, JP, you're so good. You are answering questions I haven't even asked yet because I was going to ask about the command on those other pitches that he added. His sophomore year, it just, like I said, just hasn't looked the same. And, he's got bigger things in mind than maybe pitching for Clemson. That could be important to his future. So, and I'm not saying there's any, he's got any injury. Of course, obviously, I don't know that. It just weird that, it's not even. He went from like a really consistent pitcher to a really consistent pitcher on the other end of the spectrum. Like he looked great in the first inning or two Thursday, and then once they got to him,
that third inning's been a bugaboo for him in the past. He's had it's kind of like Tom Glavine when he used to struggle to get through the first inning sometimes with Canuck. He's had some issues in the third inning for whatever it is, for whatever reason, going back to last year.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that Sunday starter. So you think perhaps they'll stay with Titsworth this week?
I'm actually surprised that we've not gotten a press release yet with the rotation on it for this weekend. We usually have it by now, but that would be my guess is Titsworth's going to be the Sunday guy, particularly with, he's been better than Talon Bell. I mean, let's just throw it out there. Talon Bell has not been nearly as effective as probably most thought he would be coming into the season now that he was supposed to be fully back. He broke a thumb over Christmas and that set him back some in his amp up. But, other than that, he doesn't have any elbow or shoulder issues going on that I know of. But he kind of still looks like the same Talon Bell, right? He doesn't, from my understanding, his velocity's not back to what it was prior to the elbow injury, which I never saw him pitch. That's just what I've been told. So I would envision it'll still be Titsworth. I know he gave up the solo home run to Georgia Tech, but a lot of people are going to give up the home runs to Georgia Tech. I just think you're better served right now with Titsworth being the Sunday guy, even though, personally, I think he's probably better suited to come out of the bullpen. But I also think he's one of those guys that he doesn't care whether he's starting or whether he's coming out of the pen. He's going to do fine either way, and not every pitcher's built that way.
Yeah, and he's going to give you 4 solid innings either way, either place. And I do. I also like him out of the bullpen. But, you want eventually at least more than 2 innings out of your starter or whoever that is, Bell or whoever on Sunday. So, and Titsworth can certainly do that. I wanted to talk to you a minute about the closer, if there is a closer, because it seemed like we started out the year with Allen, and then Danny Nelson's mixed in there a couple of games, and we got Simerson the other day. Now we got Allen pitching in 6-run midweek games. Any idea, or is it a mix and match situation, or game by game, or is he trying everybody? What's going on there?
I think you're looking kind of like at a closer by committee type of deal here. He was even going back to the preseason, he was never very committal when it came to naming just one guy. He'd talk about Danny Nelson and Simerson and Joe Allen. Joe Allen would always be the first one mentioned, but Allen would be in there, and even sometimes Deion Brown. So I think you've got different options. I think it's probably a game by game deal. Who's available, who's not. I did think it was very interesting that they brought Joe Allen in last night in a game with that kind of lead in the 9th inning. I knew he was warming up there in the 8th when Landon Fowler was having a hard time finding the strike zone. Yep. And I remember telling Casey, man, there's no way they want to bring Allen in here, right? And then the next inning, here he comes. So sometimes I'd love to know what the reasoning is behind some of those things, but I think you got options, man. Danny Nelson's been superb. Deion Brown's been pretty good in the small sample size. Joe Allen's not a guy that's going to come in and overpower you, but at least he's throwing strikes now. And if you need a ground ball, that's probably the guy you want to go to. So you don't have to rely on just that one guy. And I don't think it doesn't look like we're going to get to a point where it's just going to be one closer. They want to have multiple options on the back end, and that's what it looks like they have right now.
Yeah, I was telling Monty Taylor last week, who I had on, that I texted Casey when Nelson hit 98 one game out of the bullpen. I said, Danny Don just throwing 98 out of the bullpen. And his response was, when's the last time Clemson had somebody in the bullpen throwing 98 miles an hour? It was probably 1998.
It's been a hot minute. And he was, who was that? Somebody threw 97. I think it was Brendan Bennett's last pitch yesterday was 97.
He had a good night.
And nobody was throwing, even the last 2 days was as cold as it was. Everybody was everybody's velo was down a little bit. Except Bennett, man, he was that left-hander throwing that gas, and his last pitch was 97. But yeah, it's been a while since they've had some power arms like that in the bullpen. And Nelson's not the only one that can get it up there that fast. Again, Bennett can throw it that hard. He's a lefty. I've seen Veazey throw 96, 97 in the fall, even though I've not seen him do it during the season. I saw it during the fall. Eston Simpson was throwing a little harder in the fall, and I've seen him throw in games during the season. So they got some guys that can bring the heat, man, more so than they've had in the past and for a long time.
Nelson's sitting at a 1.17 ERA. It's just ridiculous. He hadn't walked anybody on the whole year. We're talking not a lot of innings, but still, for a freshman to come in there and pitch like he has with a 1.17 ERA, and I wanted to see his FIP. Check this out, 0.26. So he's really, really helped out of that bullpen. I did want to get back to the offense in a kind of a bigger picture thing here. the team's slugging a little more. I posted something the other day that said they're ahead of last year's pace on home runs. I mean, they're not crushing it, like double or anything, but they're ahead of last year's pace. They're below, what would that be? 24 was the year they had the 109 or 108 home runs or whatever. They're slugging a little more, a few more home runs. Got their first triple last night, but they've also been shut out twice in 22 games. And it seems like, with the exception of Savoy, everybody's helped. And of course, Savoy's obviously been the best, but everybody's helped at certain times, like Lichtenberger last night with 5 RBI and Jake Gerald with a home run here and there on the season. And everybody purified. They've all had their moments, but there's been a lot of ups and downs. McClatty's in a little funk right now, seems like. Gaffney, he's got 6 doubles, but only 2 home runs. I was bragging to Monty last week that he's hitting the ball in the air more. And after I said that, he never hit it in the air again, I don't think. So there's still a little bit of struggles in that lineup. I don't know what it is. I guess maybe it's the 2 shutouts, especially one of them being against Georgia Tech. Now you got behind early, whatever. But being shut out twice, once against South Carolina, who can't beat anybody, I don't know. They're averaging less than 2 doubles, and I'm not even talking about home runs. I'm just talking about gap power, right? Hitting in the gap and getting 2 bases. They're getting less than 2 doubles a game. It still leaves something to be desired in my estimation.
They've been a little streaky. That's kind of the way I describe it. You want to come over here and get on camera? They've been a little streaky. And it seems like they can't get everybody going in the lineup at the same time. McClatty's been, I think, hitless the past couple of games. Purify's probably behind Savoy. He's probably been the most consistent. But, to me, a lot of it goes back to Dally. You're not getting the slugging that you thought you'd get from him. That sags down the home run numbers, the double numbers, a little bit of it's Gaffney too. He's hitting the ball much better than last year, but it's not showing up in the box score as far as the extra base hits and the home runs. They've got to get some of these guys all going at the same time. They've not gotten a ton from the 7, 8, 9 spots in the order. And until they start getting some more from the bottom third of the order, they might continue to be streaky, for a bit.
Yeah, that's what that's an excellent point. That if you had Dally hitting wherever he's been, I know he's moved up a couple of spots, but still 7, 8, 9 range. If you had him hitting, probably look a whole lot, and I mean hitting for power. I mean, imagine having the, whatever he was for a while, the active college home run leader batting 9th in your lineup. Hey, I think that's what Georgia Tech is probably going to have at some point this year.
Their 9-hole guy was hitting over 400. He didn't hit his first home run till Clemson. But good Lord, man, their outs were 100 miles an hour.
Monty told me before the series started, he said, well, their 9th place hitter leads the nation in doubles. Not the ACC.
The nation.
And he showed why. Big picture, 22 games in, more than a third of the way through the season. How are you feeling about this team and the development? And, I'm not asking for a prediction, but just kind of general, what's it look like? The postseason, do you see success, whatever that may be? And I'm not asking you to predict a super regional or college World Series. Do you think they can be competitive?
Competitive, yeah. I don't know what kind of run they can make. I just, man, how nice would it be to have Tristan Becerra in this lineup right now? You bring Dally in in part because Becerra just never did what he's doing this year. That's part of the reason why you bring him in. You need a big bat, and Dally's just not quite lived up to that. But it's hard to say. I feel really good about what they've gotten out of the pitching staff so far. Just overall, generally speaking, you're going to have nights where you get knocked around a little bit. Canucks got to, break out of his little funk or whatever. But to me, it's can the offense find some consistency? You're getting what you get out of Purify. You're getting what you get out of Savoy. I mean, he's still hitting over 400. He's tied with Gerald for the team lead and with 9 home runs. For me, it goes back to maybe not just the bottom third, but maybe the bottom half of the lineup. You got to be a little more consistent there. Maybe we're seeing Lichtenberger, who hit 340 last year. I think he was around 220 coming into last night or something like that. They were expecting a lot more from his bat. You got to find a way to get Fultz going if he's going to play every day, which I think he should be playing every day with this glove at third base. He's the better defender. If you can get a couple more of those guys, being a little bit more consistent and less streaky, you start to feel a little bit better about your chances. But I don't know if this is a super regional team. I think it's fair to say they should be playing in the postseason where they've got what it takes offensively to make a deep run. That remains to be seen.
Yeah, EB in the preseason talked mostly about Fultz's bat, but that arm. That arm is that's a professional arm. I don't know. I guess the bat remains to be seen. He's hit a couple balls hard too and got nothing out of them. But that arm the other day, opened my eyes. Not a scout, but you don't have to be a scout, right? Look at that.
He had a GM over there last night that probably saved a couple runs, man. He's turned in some nice defensive plays over there the past couple nights.
I feel exactly the same way. I'm a little worried. The rotation right now is we just walked through it, right? The 3 guys. Canucks not the same. Sharman's been excellent, and then Sunday we don't know. So kind of when you get into a regional situation, and you're playing day after day after day, especially if you lose.
If you lose one,
yeah, you're in a world of hurt. So while they have the 17 or 18 arms, they're going to have to piece some stuff together. It feels like right now they don't have the guys to go, 6 or a little more, which is not unusual, obviously, but feel better about it when they did, when Canuck went 6.
If Canuck's consistently giving you 5, 6, and he's not a guy that's going to give you 7, 8 on a weekly basis, He's just not that efficient. His pitch count gets up too high. But if he's giving you 5 or 6 week after week after week, and he's not giving up 3 home runs a game and 14 doubles, that your chances increase dramatically. For me, it all starts with him.
The schedule toughens up, of course, now into ACC play, and even some of the midweek games are Coastal and Georgia, and most of the lighter weight teams have already been played. So from this point out, it'll be interesting to see what the statistics are, if Dally can get going against, theoretically anyway, better pitching, if the whole offense can. And on the other end, if the pitching, when they're seeing better hitting, theoretically, all of the ACC teams and Coastal and Georgia and whoever else is on that schedule, if the pitching can perform as well as they've performed also. So Notre Dame starting tomorrow. I looked this morning, it was 36 degrees in Notre Dame.
It's supposed to be warm during the days.
So we shall see. Is it true? I don't even know if you know this. Is only the Friday game on TV?
Indeed.
Oh boy.
I don't know the reasoning behind that, but unless something's changed, Fridays was the only one scheduled to be streamed.
Okay, that must be
mind blowing to me.
It's 2026 ACC.
It seems like that would be a Notre Dame thing.
Yeah.
In the ACC, you're kind of responsible for your own home broadcast, basically, and so to me that probably falls on the shoulders of Notre Dame. The games up there in the past have been streamed. I don't know if they got a bunch of home events going this weekend that
right.
maybe affect that. I don't know. I haven't looked.
Wow. Incredible. Okay, well, that opens up some time with the wife for me over the weekend. She's been bugging me a little bit in baseball season. Slipped in a lot of time in front of the computer, but that'll be it. JP, I thank you for coming in and early this afternoon. I had some stuff to do later, and appreciate you coming in, spending a half an hour with me. I won't keep you any longer. I know you got shows and stories to write, but I appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
All right. Have a good evening.